Hi, and welcome to the Rise Up and Roar podcast with Carrie Hurley. Is life chaotic and overwhelming? Do intrusive thoughts interrupt your day? Do you long for the abundant life that Jesus came to give you? Then, sister, you're in the right place. Here on the Rise Up and Roar podcast, we help you overcome overwhelm, navigate the negative, and redeem the courageous life that God has called you to live. My dear, you are powerful for the kingdom of heaven and dangerous to the system of darkness. It's time to rise up into your power, privilege, and place as a daughter of the King. Come, join me on today's episode. Hello, I'm your host, Carrie Hurley, and I am delighted that you are joining me here today. Now, has God ever told you that it's time to prune? Is it scary whenever you hear those words, you got to cut something out? Well, let me tell you, my friend, it doesn't have to be scary. Pruning is not a punishment. Now, whenever I was growing up, I sat under pastors that whenever they talked about pruning, whenever they introduced the verses from John, where it talks about pruning and, abiding and those kinds of things, they talked about you got to get rid of the bad stuff. You've got to get rid of the diseased stuff. That's what God's talking about. And I grew up with that idea and that understanding. Well, several summers ago, I was sitting out in my garden with my tomato plants. And as I was pruning my tomato plants, as you do, the Lord said, "Hey, do you see what you're doing?" And I stopped and I looked. He said, "Look at these plants. Is there anything wrong with what you are cutting off?" And I looked at them and there wasn't. Because, okay, so here's the deal. Whenever a tomato plant grows, if you're not familiar with tomato plants, you have the main vine that grows, and then you have two different types of branches. You have one type of branch that only produces leaves, and you have another type of branch that only produces fruit. So what do I do when I prune my tomatoes? I go in and I cut off those branches that are only producing leaves because I want the energy to go into my fruit, producing fruit, right? And so he said, look at those things that you're pruning right now. They're not diseased. They are beautiful. They are growing quickly and rapidly. And he said, but you're cutting them off. He said, this is what pruning is. This is a part of pruning. It is taking those things that may be good, that may be going well, and they look healthy and vibrant. He said, however, they're not producing fruit. And so it's time for you to snip them and move on to those, putting your energy, putting your focus into those things, those activities, those thoughts that produce good fruit. Because that's what we're here for, right? Is to produce good fruit. And so I want to challenge you today to take a look, ask the Lord, take a look at my life. Just lay it all out before him. Give him permission to come in and say, you know what, this is good, but this is not the season for it. This is good, but you need to let this go if you want to produce fruit. And our God is a God of choices, right? He doesn't demand, he invites us to partner with him in pruning because he knows if we do this together, then it will produce more fruit and our energy will not be divided, but it will be focused. And I want to tell you that right now I am in a season of examining everything with the Lord, saying, okay, what stays? What's got to go? Because I have too many irons in the fire. Can any of you relate? Too many irons in the fire. And they're all good. There's not a single one of those things that I'm looking at in my life that I would say, okay, that's a bad choice. No, they are very good. And yet, they are not all serving me well. They're not all producing the kind of fruit that God is looking to produce in me right now. So together, we come together, and I want to encourage you to lay it all out. And then God's going to say, hey, these things right here, they need to go. And then you have the choice. You have the choice to say, okay, I agree with you. What's the best way for me to walk into letting this go? Do I just need to clip it and run or chuck it and run? That's my favorite phrase. Chuck it and run. Or is this something to release gracefully ask him for his wisdom because he promises in James 1:5 that if any of you lack wisdom, that just ask. And God says yes, he gives it generously. And then those things, so you have blah, blah, sorry, you have the choice. You can say yes to pruning, or you can say, nope, I'm not ready to let go of that. And God's not going to force you to do that. But you may get uncomfortable. You may get spread thin. You may push yourself into overwhelm and eventually into burnout. Because you know what? God is good. He is for you and he has good things for you. But in order to access those, we've got to be walking in cooperation with him. So the question is, does he want you? Is he inviting you to prune some things right now? And this is the end of the year. We're looking at a new year. And now is a great time to be looking to say, how can I start the new year fresh? How can I start the new year lighter? How can I start the new year walking with the Lord, learning from him, watching how he does it, learning those unforced rhythms of grace? Now, I do want to invite you. December 29th, I am hosting a free workshop, and it's called Ditch the Overwhelm, Learn the Unforced Rhythms of Grace. Grace is an acronym, and enter 2025 with less stress and set up for more success. So if you want to join me in these, the link to join will be down in the show notes, and get signed up. So get your spot because I do meet with you one-on-one before the workshop so that we can suss out and make sure we're a good fit. Make sure this is what you need because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste my time. So let's meet together and get you into that workshop if this is what's going to be good for you and help you move into the new year with resilience, with joy, and walking lightly. So I want you to remember, regardless, you are powerful for the kingdom of heaven and you are dangerous to the system of darkness. It is time for you to rise up and roar in your power, place, privilege, rights, and responsibilities as a daughter of the King of Kings. May you go forth in power. Till next time. All right, my dear, that's going to do it for this episode of the Rise Up and Roar podcast, where we help Christian women overcome overwhelm, navigate the negative, and redeem the courageous life that God has called each of us to live. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Grab my free resources on my website and follow me on Instagram at Mrs. Carrie Hurley. Have a great day.